Hey everyone, Phil from 3DP UK Tech Channel. Today's unboxing and review is on the Anycubic Kobra S1 Core XY printer. Anyone who has followed this channel will know that I started off on Anycubic products. We've done a full circle and we're back with this beautiful bamboo killer, possibly. That's questionable. We'll have to look into this review. Okay, so out of the box we have the user manual. What we're going to now need to do is remove the ACE unit, so let's put it up on the table. So to do that, you're going to need to use the Allen key supplied and remove the 2.5 screws that are in there, and this is for transport purposes. Once you've removed that, you'll be able to lift out the ACE Pro by taking off the lid like so. Okay, so basically now we've removed the ACE Pro. As you can see, it comes with all of the equipment that you need to be able to connect it up to the actual printer itself. We're going to discard the filament that they give you. It really isn't useful, especially with this being an ACE unit. So once you've taken it out, you've got some polystyrene. You're going to use the 2.5 again Allen key, remove arrows that you can see for the screws, and then once you've done that, it pulls out the actual transport protection. Cut the cable tie and also remove the cardboard covering. In the poop chute you will have some polystyrene, so let's remove that as well. So next up, we now need to remove the 3 screws from the build plate. This is all for transport purposes. Do not carry on with any of the process without making sure that all of the arrowed screws have been removed. This could potentially damage it. So taking a look inside the actual box that's supplied, you've got the adapter, you've got USB, you've got 2 power cables, one for the ACE unit, one for the actual printer itself, and some activated carbon and other screws and bolts that you're going to need to carry out the actual put together itself. So let's head on over to that part. Okay, so now we're going to put on the rear spool holder. You don't have to do this if you're planning on using the ACE unit. Just follow the instructions for that. So next we're going to put together the ACE unit on top of that. So what we need to do is remove the packaging from the lid itself, put that on and put the ACE unit on top. So now connecting up the filament buffer, you're going to use the 2.5 again, 2 screws, put that in, and then you're going to connect up the 6-pin and the 4-pin to the ACE unit and the printer in its respective places. So now we have that in place, we now need to connect up the PTFE tubes into the filament buffer. If you remove the blue clips, that actually works perfectly and it allows you to push fit. Each of those can be tidied with the special cable tidies. You have 2 of those, one at the bottom, one at the rear. Okay, so now we need to connect up the power cable. Once again, there's 2 of those. As you can see, now we are looking at the screen. Take off the plastic covering from that. We're also going to remove the plastic covering from the door. There's one on the inside and one on the outside as well. You also will find some on the actual wording. Now to add the activated carbon charcoal in there, just by removing the cover and put it in. Okay, so now we need to carry out the actual connection. On the USB, it has all of that basically setup guide for calibration. Make sure that's in. And as you can see on the screen now, it gives you a tick by tick what's doing. So it's going to do a self-test, so it'll do a calibration, auto bed leveling, and resonance testing. So it takes about 10 minutes for that. You possibly might have to do a firmware update, so take that into consideration. When you've done the firmware update, you will need to carry out some of these tests again because it takes it back to factory setting. So let's go back now and allow that to do that test. So as you can see, it's currently doing the bed level mesh. So it will then go over into the main screen and we'll take a look through what's actually there. So as you can see on the top part, and the second part, you have the ACE unit. You can connect up to 2 ACE units, so 8 colors in total. It recognizes that we have one connected, and then it allows you to add all the filaments in there. Now, if your filaments do have RFID, this will automatically recognize that. If they're not, you can manually enter them just by following the simple steps on the screen. As you also know that you have this ACE unit, it is a filament dryer, which is one of the only printers that you actually have that come in as standard, which I think is really counting it above most of its Core XY multicolor printer competitors at the moment. As you can see, very easy to use. So the next step, you can check out all the controls. So you've got your model fan, your auxiliary fan. You can also go over to your calibration if you want to redo all that. So if you want to do your PID calibration, you can do that as well. You can also home your bed if you want to do that. Next step, it just gives you your network, all your connections. So if you want to do wireless, you can do that by scanning the QR code. You can turn off the LED or the filament detector or the belt detection as well. You can also change the type of nozzle, selecting whichever one, but it won't allow us to do that at the moment until the new firmware upgrades. As you can see, it also gives you some helpful guides using the QR codes on the screen. And then it also gives you all the printer information, the current firmware, etc., and the build volume. We'll go into some of the specifications towards the end of this video, and we'll do some prints, etc., and I'll give you my final thoughts on this printer itself. But so far, the simplicity of putting this together has really blown me away. As you can see right now, we are looking at some of the models that did come on the U-disc. These are very quick models, so some of them are benchies that are hyper fast, so for PLA or PETG. So it's your choice which one you want to choose, or if you feel confident enough, you can go and slice your own models and go straight in on a major print. Personally, I would always do one of their own slice models. So let's connect up some of the filaments now. As you can see on the screen, I am connecting some non-standard Anycubic products. So as I'm going along and I'm adding, I'm putting the colors, what type of product it is, if it's PLA, PETG, whatever it is you're going to be printing on this. Obviously TPU you won't be able to use on the actual multi-material ACE unit. So now what I'm going to do is carry out, so as you can see and hear on the screen now, I have turned on the heating dryer and you can hear it as we speak. So it's quite noisy, but once you shut the lid, it's not too
PCBWay are a PCB board manufacturer. On their website, you will find that they have lots of amazing deals, lots of competitions, lots of vouchers that you can use if you're planning to do any purchases. Really easy to use website as well. Not only do they do PCB board manufacturing, they also do PCB board prototyping, PCB assembly, advanced PCB, FPC rigid flex. They also do 3D printing and CNC. So check them out, PCBWay.com.
Okay, so let's take a look inside. We'll go over some of the specs towards the end of the video, but let's take a quick look inside. So as you can see, it's got the 6mm belts. We've got the rails on the Core XY setup. We've got the nozzle wipe and the poop chute as well. Lots of people are doing attachments. We've also got the motor setup. We've also got the AI detection camera, which can also be used for time-lapsing. However, when I was doing my testing, that image was quite granular, so that's something to look at. We've got the actual extruder tensioner on the inside, so you'll notice that on there as well. So on the right hand side, you've got the USB connection port, which I'm not too keen. It should have been up near the screen, if I'm honest. At the back, we've got the actual poop chute area, and you've also got the filament holder. This has two power sockets, one for the ACE unit and for the actual printer itself. So let's take a look at some prints now, and at the end of it we'll capture what my thoughts on this printer are, the things that I wasn't too happy with, the things that I've had to modify on the printer to be able to get decent color prints. But like I say, we'll also go over some of the specs as well and my final thoughts. So let's head on over to all these prints now. So as you can see from this benchy, there's slight under extrusion on that. This was a 27-minute print, so this wasn't with doing anything. And also, I believe this filament was slightly damp, as you can see some stringing. But as you can see, there is some slight extrusions around the edges. So this one, we're going to revisit the benchy with some tweaks on the slicer. Okay, so now we're looking at little plant models. So I'm going to leave a link in the description at the end of this video where you can find these models and the Patreon for that. This was a multicolor print. This took around about 18 hours. There was 5 models in total, and I did use one that you can see at the back as a purge model, so that is just for stopping the waste as well. However, I did lose 1 or 2 of those models, but that was due to adhesion on the plate. I did add a brim on a reprint of that, and it worked perfectly. Okay, so now we're just going to do some models, which is some key rings, and these are Stanley cups. This was a multicolor print in the terms of like a layered multicolor, so I just wanted to check that it could do that as well. And that printed fine, no brim. I did clean the build plate with some isopropyl alcohol, and that took about 7 hours to do those 10 cups, so nice and easy, no issues at all with retraction. However, I did have some issues with other models where the filament was getting stuck, and I would have to go back to it and revisit that, and that's something that I made some modification to the actual ACE unit. Okay, so once again, this is using rainbow filament. These are once again those little blob models. The link I would have left in the description, and as you can see, that come out really well. It was a nice and quick print. I did add a brim, as I said earlier. You can see there's like a line around the midway through his head, and that's got something to do with the fact that there was a clog, so I stopped it, and then you get that natural line where the time between the print and that comes along. So here we have, I decided to slice a model that was a full bed layer adhesion to see how it comes out, whether we're getting any under extrusion. And as you can see from this, now I don't see any issues with this. This was based on the auto bed leveling that was carried out as part of the initial setup. I haven't done any tweaks to the bed at all, and as you can see, pretty happy with that. There's no pulling away, really happy with that. Okay, so as we can see, these models here are from Flexipets. Once again, link in the description. These are little caterpillars. This was a multicolor print. There was a considerable amount of waste with that, but awesome prints as well. Okay, so this model is a gecko. This is once again from Flexipets as well, and this was a larger model. This took about 22 hours. Both of them come out really well. Multiple filament changes on that, but I did get a number of retraction abnormal notifications, so code 11512. Now I did reach out to Anycubic about that. They gave me some feedback on what to check, and I did that, and as you can see on the screen, I realigned all of the filaments, and I received that notification several times throughout that print, so that was quite difficult to work with, a bit of an issue. Now, looking at the community, I have noticed that some people's feedback was to add these attachments that you can see on the screen, and this is just a filament guide. What we seem to be having an issue with is the actual filament coming in at an angle, and it's not pulling back properly. There's a bit of the extruders pushing quicker than the actual filament roll is pulling back, so there's a coil up and it's getting all caught up. So I'm going to print off these, add them to the printer itself, and see if that improves a long print. Okay, so you'll see that I've added that now. I'll leave a link in the description for these attachments. I'm gonna use them over the next weeks leading up to maybe another revisit of this review. But as you can see, I reprinted that gecko and this one came out perfect. The other ones failed because of the retraction issues. I think it failed at least 7 times. So I just stopped the print at that point because we were wasting filament and we just wasn't really getting anywhere. It was taking way too long. The green filament, I have an issue with this. Now this has failed on a number of models, this particular filament, so I think I have an issue with this filament itself. Whether it's damp, I'm not sure. The Ace Pro does dry, so I had that on throughout the whole of this print, so I'm not sure what's going on there. It could just be the filament itself. Another thing from the community was to add the Ace Pro attachments to the lid, to the top. So what that then does is it lifts the Ace Pro up slightly and allows you to remove and push back the lid, and this helps with PLA printing and PETG. So rather than leaving the front door open and it's swinging about and there's potential risks of damaging that, having that attachment on top, you can put 2 screws in either side of the Ace Pro and away you go. You can print, there's no issues at all. Once again, another great community install on that one. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few prints now. So this is a Pipecox geisha wall mask. This was done in a rainbow filament, so there was no multicolour print. I just wanted to see whether it could cope with some of the detailed look, so I did add a brim on that. Once again, had some issues with adhesion. This seems to be a bit of an ongoing thing with this particular one. I have cleaned it. I've used isopropyl alcohol several times on it. I've not even added any sort of additional adhesion properties on it, and it was literally printing like this. But this one come out brilliant. This was a very long print, but as you can see from the detail, it was absolutely amazing. I love his models from Pipecox. I tend to do most of my reviews using this particular model. It shows detail and it's just a great print. Once again, I've done 2 or 3 different types of benches. As you can see, this one come out almost perfect. Absolutely no ringing, no under extrusion. I would say almost a perfect 3D benchy based on the time that you're getting it. So 37 minutes, I believe. I thought I'd try again with a green filament. That was the one that I was having issues. I was just seeing if there was anything there. And then the black one, apart from a little bit of stringing, that's almost perfect as well. So great to see that. And then finally, I showed it on earlier on in the video, I just wanted to do a full build plate layer check just to see whether we're getting any under extrusion, if there was any sort of misalignment on the bed leveling, and that was from the auto bed leveling, which is the LeviQ 3.0. Going to go over some of the specs towards the end of the video, and then that's what we'll capture up, and then I'll do a final recap. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the review. So let's talk about some of the technical specs of the Anycubic Kobra S1 Core XY printer. So Anycubic have brought us their first attempt at Core XY with some familiar features to other brands that we're not going to mention in this video. They're obviously approaching it from a more affordable aspect. Now, having owned some of the original Core XY printers that it's being marketed towards, I would say that I have some questions as to whether it reaches that level, if I'm being truly honest from this initial review. Now, from the unboxing till the build to the actual using of it, the prints, the multicolor printing, the slicing, etc., and the setup and the calibration, it was pretty seamless. The issues that I found was more around the multicolor capabilities. Now, being a multicolor Core XY printer, it's kind of, for me, a key feature. Now, the issue seems to lie more around the actual Ace Pro unit. Now, the Ace Pro unit has the inbuilt dryer capabilities, which for me is a massive, massive plus for this printer. And I know that it's something that the community want for other printers, but Anycubic approached that and they've done it, they've implemented it. Now it's a great feature in my eyes. But that could also lead us to the issues that I found during this review. Now, during this review, I found that I had a number of retraction issues, a number of filament breakages and stuff like that. Now, I did, however, manage to print multicolor, but how I got there was to have to go back to the community, see what other people have had issues with, and try to approach it from that back. Now, it doesn't take away from the fact that the printer is amazing. It doesn't take it away from the fact that you will always find these issues, especially with the fact that Anycubic have launched this Core XY printer into the market, and it's their first approach at it. I think they've done a good job. The aesthetics of the printer itself is really nice. I just think there's got to be something looked at the issues with retraction. Now, one of the prints was a 22-hour print. It took me almost 30 hours to achieve that print, even though it was specified as 22 hours. And the reason for that was simply because it failed 7 times in retraction issues. I don't have that issue. I done a long print in a single color. So the Pipecox geisha face model, that was an 19 hour print, I believe, but that was a single color, no issues at all. It had no issues at all, with no failures, obviously no retraction, because you're not multicolor changing. And if you're doing multicolor printing, I think the key feature is a seamless changeover. You know, the waste is always going to be an issue. The community is approaching that. How you go about that is you can purge into another model if you want to do that, or if you want to change some of the settings with the slicer, you can do that as well. So let's have a quick talk about the specifications. Now, we have a 250 by 250 by 250 build volume, so square, which is a decent size in comparison to other competitors for multicolor printing. We've got a 4.3 inch touchscreen, rotating screen itself, so you can flatten it down if you want to work like that. If you've got a print farm, that's always a great thing to see as well. We're looking at speeds of up to 620,000 acceleration. Now, it's always going to be a lot less than what they specify in the features, because let's be honest, the quicker the printer goes, the worse the quality is. That's a known fact. So let's talk about some of the other features. It also features a standard 0.4 nozzle, which reaches up to 320 degrees. The build plate reaches up to 120 degrees, and it is an enclosed unit, so it hasn't got a heated chamber, but you could probably still do some more exotic filaments because of the fact that you can just whack the heated plate up a little bit more, change the temperature of the nozzle. But obviously 320 is your maximum, so you are restricted in that fact. It does have the Levy Q3 auto bed leveling, and as you see with the model that I showed earlier, the initial auto bed leveling worked perfectly. I know that some people haven't had that success, but that was one of the great things that I found from this particular review. They also have aimed towards proprietary parts, so you cannot just buy third party to replace like the nozzle, etc. However, they have gone for the quick swap, so that's a good thing. You've got the 2-axis configuration with the guide rails, so you've got a nice stable print there. I've already touched on the Ace Pro as well, so for me the Ace Pro is amazing in terms of the fact that it's got a heated chamber as to be able to dry your filaments, but that in turn leads to some issues, which is why I've added those parts to allow the retraction and supply of the filaments. And that seemed to solve the problem because I've done a multicolor print with no failures. So it's probably something that could be looked at. It's something that I'm going to revisit later on down the line in my reviews. It has the camera as well, which is the AI detection. Now, having reviewed Anycubic products on my channel prior to sort of going into this more mainstream, I always found that Anycubic had a great product, but they just kind of missed a little bit out on some of the fine tuning, such as PID, or if you wanted to change your Z offset. Now, I've noticed that the interface on this is pretty much the same issues that I'm seeing. They haven't taken into consideration if I wanted to change the Z offset, you've got to do that through the slicer, which is great, but I kind of like to be able to make those changes on the roll if I need to. But it doesn't mean to say you can't do it. I have a bit of an issue with the fact that the multicolor printing, I had a serious issue with the fact that I couldn't always do it. There was retraction issues, there was notifications, I had to contact them. So for me, if I am buying a multicolor printer and it's a Core XY printer and they are bringing it to the market, I expect it to be as good as possible. And I just find that in comparison to some of my other recent multicolor printer reviews, that I was intervening a lot more than I needed to. So that's my feedback. Other than that, great printer, worth the money if you look at the current price of that. It needs fine tuning. It could have been just that I had a particular issue with that, but it seemed to be a common issue. But otherwise, my opinion for this is it's got a great opportunity to bring to the market an affordable Core XY multicolor printer enclosed as well. They have tried to go in and sort of go up against some of these big competitors that have been out for a while now. I think they've got a little way to go with that, but that's a personal opinion, and I know not everyone will agree with me, but that's fine because this review is my thoughts only. So thanks again to Anycubic for sending me this printer to review. I do hope that you take some of this information and maybe go back and revisit a better way of fixing, because I don't believe that we should be using community mods to be able to get a decent multicolor print, but that is just something that I've found from this review. So once again, thank you to everyone for watching this review. That was the Anycubic Kobra S1 multicolor Core XY printer. I am 3DP UK Tech Channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and take care everyone.